So tonight, we will present our administrative recommendation on what to bring to voters on the November 2nd, 2021 ballot. So before we present our recommendation, we want to review what brought us to this point. And these are the areas on the slide there that we will cover in our presentation. First, a reminder of who we are as a school district. We have a long and proud history of providing strong educational programs, a talented, caring staff, and a shared vision of excellence. We are also fortunate to have decades of generous and reliable financial support from the community, which has enabled us to meet the educational needs of our students and their families. We also work hard to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars and to be financially transparent and credible. And a couple examples are we recently received the Certificate of Excellence for Excellent Comprehensive Financial Reporting, demonstrating our commitment to financial transparency and accountability. And also, the district's credit rating was recently upgraded by Moody's Financial Services. Some recent reasons we are proud include that our staff really worked well together to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're so proud of how staff, students, and families have made this year work despite all the challenges. At the district level and in all our school buildings, we've maintained connections with families and have even built, in some cases, stronger relationships with some of our families who weren't as engaged in more traditional outreach activities. And while we missed our face-to-face engagement over the last year, technology has allowed us to innovate and make the best of a difficult situation. Some families tell us they've never been so engaged in what their students are learning or as connected with their students' teachers. Of course, we're so proud of the remarkable learning spaces that we've been able to build for students and teachers thanks to the investment made by our community in the 2017 bond referendum. Those funds, which must be used exclusively for capital building projects, have resulted in some of the most advanced learning spaces in the state. And as we near the end of the construction, we're happy to say we remain on time and within budget. Many of the investments to our facilities allow us to better prepare our students for high demand, high wage jobs and post-secondary learning opportunities. At Roseville Area High School, we've been able to develop our Raider Career Pathways program, which connects students with businesses right here in our community for hands-on learning. With that as background, let's move to our finances and the operating levy recommendation. We've been working on this levy recommendation for many months. You, the board, receive regular updates on our budget planning for the future. And these updates have included various scenarios for our operating levy renewal and or increase for discussion purposes. What to do about our operating levy has been a discussion point since November of 2019. We recently surveyed our community to get their input on funding priorities and support for any possible tax increase to benefit our school programs. And you had a healthy discussion about levy options for November at your last school board work study session. So tonight we will recommend what to bring to voters in November based on all this planning and discussion. This spring, we conducted a random sample scientifically projectable phone survey with our community. Here are a few highlights that show what is on our community members' minds as they think about our schools. The final list of bullet points actually shows how parents who know our schools best rate us on some key items, so the parent percentages are in parentheses. We also asked what items community members and parents would support if additional levy funding was available. The items listed here receive support from at least 2/3 of respondents and are listed in parent priority order from most to least supported. Looking at our finances, it's becoming increasingly challenging to maintain our quality programs with the resources provided. And as you can see from the graph for nearly 2 decades, state funding has not kept pace with inflation or increasing educational costs. If state funding had merely kept pace with inflation since 2003, this year alone, we would have received an additional $4 million. In addition to state funding not keeping pace, there's other financial pressures. Our special education programs, which are required in a very vital, important, wonderful part of our district, cost us nearly $10 million more each year than we receive. So of course, this adds to the pressure on our budget. Due to the pandemic, the federal government has provided additional funds to schools, for which we are very grateful. However, as a group, these are one-time funds focused on pandemic relief needs, and they will not address our long-term budget sustainability. Given these financial realities, we've made cuts to live within our means. To manage increasing expenses amid inadequate revenue, we have cut more than $8 million since 2013. These cuts have negatively affected staffing at all levels, student supports, and class sizes. Without additional revenue, these cuts will continue. Our second largest source of financial support is our local community through operating levies. Levies support our operating budget, enabling us to provide the staff, materials, and supports our students need. And the last time we asked our community to increase our operating levy was 15 years ago. We do our best to live within our means and only go to voters when necessary. Many people aren't aware that there's a legal distinction between different pots of monies that schools receive, in particular the difference between levies and bonds. So we had a bond request in 2017, and we are so grateful our community supported that request. It's enabled us to make building improvements all across our district. But bond funds can only be used for building projects. Bonds are for buildings. Operating levies are for learning. Levies are for learning. They support classroom instruction, teachers, and other school operating costs. Currently, our operating levy is below most of our neighboring and comparable school districts. As this chart shows, which includes other Suburban East Conference school districts, and in addition, we added North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, since they're adjoin us. But as this chart shows, Mounds View currently receives nearly twice as much and per student's funds through its voter-approved operating levy as we do. So that means less funding for our schools, our staff, and our students as compared to other school districts. Our voter-approved operating levy is a critical source of funding, obviously, for us. If it isn't renewed in November, the district would lose $8 million annually. We also know that if we only renew the levy, but don't get more revenue, cuts would continue. We recommend an increase in the operating levy in addition to asking voters to renew our current levy. We recommend putting the renewal and increase as two separate questions on the November ballot and believe it is the most prudent course of action. Question 2 would be contingent on question 1. That is to say that question 1 must pass in order for question 2 to pass. This chart is a snapshot of a detailed tax impact for various levels of home value in our community. So for context, the impact, if both questions are approved, will be $23 per month on a $281,000 value home, which is the median value in Roseville area schools. The renewal of our levy, which is question 1, would continue to generate about $8 million per year if passed. The proposed increase of our levy, which is question 2, would bring an additional $7 million per year if passed. So if both questions are approved, the new levy would be in place for 10 years. So this slide shows ballot language for question 1, and that ballot language is dictated by law. So that's what, if you approve a recommendation tonight, that's what the ballot language will look like on November 2nd for question 1. The next slide has similar ballot language for question 2. And I'd just like to point out that you can see it starts with if school district ballot question 1 is approved. And it says that because, of course, question 2 is contingent on question 1. In other words, the increase can only pass if voters also approve the renewal. So a little bit about what it means to pass or not pass these 2 questions, if these are questions you choose to put on the ballot. It's important to understand these consequences of success or failure of both questions. So these next slides spell out the various scenarios that are possible. So this, in question 1, passage of question 1 would help lessen drastic cuts, but we would not be able to address any critical needs. And in fact, cuts would still be needed if question 2 did not pass along with question 1 passage. If question 1 fails, we would face very significant cuts in several areas and take quite a hit on our financial health. Question 2, if that also passes in addition to question 1, and it can only pass if question 1 were to pass, we would have funds available to address some critical needs such as class sizes. We have higher class sizes than the metro averages, various student supports and academic programs. It would also strengthen our financial stability. But if question 2 were to fail, we have 3 slides that outline what would take place. And so this first slide outlines staff cuts that would be needed and the resulting impact on class sizes and lack of student and staff supports. So that's the staffing piece of question 2 were to fail. This slide outlines the program cuts that would occur as well as fee increases. And then this slide, finally, if question 2 fails, our financial health will continue to suffer, and we will continue to, as a district, to have budget cuts. So this slide summarizes our recommendation. The renewal is a no tax increase request, but if only the renewal passes, it would also come with continued budget cuts and obviously no ability to do more for our students. The increase, which can only pass if voters also approve question 1, would give us the ability to address class sizes, expand student supports and programs such as career pathways, and would provide financial stability. Our average homeowner would see a tax increase of approximately $23 per month. So school board members, to plan for your decision, we've been reviewing financial information with you for more than a year. Tonight it's time to have your final discussion, answer any questions, share your thoughts about this planning process, and then vote on this recommendation for the November 2nd ballot. We certainly appreciate your careful consideration of these important issues. Thank you.